What you're looking at right here is the offensive and defensive production of every team in the NBA as of December 10th. All the way on the right, you've got the league's best offenses, with Indiana of course being a total outlier. And in the same way that the Pacers have separated themselves from the pack on offense, that's exactly what the Timberwolves have done on defense, allowing 3 points less than any other team and almost 8 less than the league's average. A historically great mark. That all-time defense has been fueled by some incredible rim protection. They're the only team that ranks in the top 5 in both opponent attempts and field goal percentage at the rim, which is of course anchored by Rudy Gobert, a candidate to bring home his 4th Defensive Player of the Year. So you'd think that with that type of resistance in the paint, when you go up against a player who quite literally only scores in the paint, you do a good job of defending him, right? Well, in the case of Zion Williamson and the Pelicans, that couldn't be further from the truth. It was clear right away that whenever he touched the ball, Minnesota would set up in a wall-like formation, with Gobert completely abandoning his own matchup to protect the paint. Now, at worst, that's going to create open threes for a guy like Valanciunas. But there are obviously better options, and to prevent Rudy from sitting in that coverage, next time they're going to use Jonas as a screener, bringing the big man into the primary action. From there, Zion's able to attack him with downhill momentum, going into his body to draw a foul. That was actually Gobert's second foul just 3 minutes into the game, so he had to be pulled early, and all of a sudden that rim defense starts to look a little bit shaky. You can see that difference here. Zion gets the ball with an open corner to attack, and once he beats his man, instead of an all-time rim protector, it's Karl Anthony Towns. Needless to say, that's some easy offense. With less rim protection on the floor, that means the Wolves were forced into helping a lot more aggressively. Naz Reid attempts to make a play on the ball from just one pass away, so Zion reacts by immediately kicking it to Dyson Daniels, who knocks down the corner 3. With Gobert off the floor, the team also loses his league best drop coverage, making Zion even more deadly as a screener. Naz pretty much abandons the ball entirely in an effort to not let him get it on the roll, and Jose Alvarado's left with a ton of open space to get into a floater. And although he leaves it short, guess who's there on the follow? He had no trouble getting whatever he wanted on the offensive glass in this quarter. Notice how Reid is up at the elbow, and he's the only big man on the floor, so there's nobody left to stop Zion from securing a second chance and launching right back up for a dunk. He ended up playing about 9.5 minutes in the first and scored 9 points, but when he checked back in about halfway through the second, Gobert was back in the game as well. Again, you can see that early rotation, more worried about protecting the paint than anything his man does. But notice how he's on Zion's right side. That leaves the door open for his signature move, threatening a right-hand drive before exploding back to his left with a spin, which gives him an angle to kiss it off the glass. But next time he found himself in a similar situation, the Timberwolves had what they wanted, with Rudy on his left. He's completely unfazed though, as he goes back to that exact same move, this time spinning into the rim protection, and from this frame right here, it looks like there's absolutely no chance he's putting this ball in the basket. That's where craft comes into play, finding an impossible release angle to again kiss it off the glass for 2. And that's the thing, while usually the game's best rim protectors are able to deter even elite slashers from testing them, that rule just simply does not apply to Zion. This one starts with a high ball screen, and Rudy's back in that drop coverage, which leaves about 10 feet of space to attack. With that much room to build up ahead of steam, there's just not much you can do anymore. Eventually, Gobert did check out, and in an effort to protect the paint, the Wolves tried out a zone. And to counter, what the Pelicans did was clear an entire side of the floor so that Zion could isolate. Now the Wolves have a difficult choice to make. Do you commit to a double, leaving the weak side vulnerable, or do you leave him one-on-one and live with the results? Here they choose the latter, and that results in another spinning layup. So next time down, instead of leaving him on an island, Jaden McDaniels is going to slide down from up top to protect the nail. Now Zion doesn't really have that opportunity to drive right before spinning back to his left, and instead just drives baseline, then takes off vertically, head almost touching the rim, and softly flips it in. When they weren't in a zone, they tried a flurry of different matchups. First, it was Naz Reid, a center, so he's going to use his agility advantage by attacking in early offense, getting to the paint where he earns some free throws. Then it was Kyle Anderson, who doesn't defend much at the point of attack, so he's going to set up with a ball screen, which he rejects for a left-hand drive, and the only way to close that lane is to again foul. Finally, they went to Jaden McDaniels, who's light on his feet and at his best out in space, so this time Zion's going to initiate from the elbow, once again starting his drive right to set up the spin left, and you guessed it, drawing another foul. When a player continues to draw foul after foul when attacking downhill like this, it's usually a sign that he's too physically overwhelming for the opposing defense, and in this game he attempted 12 free throws. Not out of the ordinary, but the big thing is that he was making them. He hit 10 of 12, 83%, and it's really tough to defend him while also keeping him off the line. So if he's punishing those fouls, best of luck. All of that takes us to the fourth quarter. Gobert's back in the game, and priority number one is to slow Zion down by any means necessary. The Pelicans go back to that open side isolation, and instead of leaving Reid one-on-one, Rudy comes over early to help. Now that creates a 3-on-2 advantage on the weak side, and from there, all Zion has to do is make the right read, kicking it out to CJ McCollum, who knocks down the open jumper. This next one starts with an isolation in the middle of the floor, and when Zion puts it down, it looks like Towns is in a good position. Rudy doesn't want to overhelp and let the offense gain an advantage, so he stays home, but we all know that's not gonna cut it. Even when Gobert is in perfect position, sometimes the finishing arsenal is just too good. Rudy thinks that Zion's gonna attempt to finish to his left, so he overplays the front of the rim, which leaves open an angle to go glass. And when they go back to him in the middle of the floor, this time against McDaniels, his attack finally gets completely closed off. Or so you'd think, until he goes right through Jaden's body to set up a push shot over the top and finishes it for a chance at 3 from the line. He finished this one with 36 points on 81% true shooting while only turning the ball over once. So if you want to talk efficiency, that's what it looks like. The Pelicans had a scorching 137.5 offensive rating in his minutes, and he was a plus 26 in a 14-point win. That's what impact looks like. And this performance, to me, really shed light on a few important points. One is that just because a team has an elite paint defense doesn't mean that they can stop an all-time paint scorer from getting his. The second is that just because a player can't score from outside doesn't mean that they can't still find a bunch of different ways to put the ball in the basket. And finally, the last point is that Zion Williamson is really good at basketball. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn my post notifications on to be first on more content. If you're interested in my more in-depth research, make sure to check out my website and social media profiles. You can find those links in the description. Feel free to let me know down in the comments what you think of Zion. As always, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.